So the first step in training are developing what's called visual code words. And basically the way it works is this. You have some sort of an operator, and we'll talk about interest point operators, that generate what are called interest points. That is, these are points in the image where reasonable amounts of interesting stuff is happening, and we'll talk about Harris corners and other ways of finding that. What you do is you take your interest point operator, pull out all the interesting points on a bunch of training images. You collect a little image patch right around those points. You may get hundreds of them or thousands of them. And then you cluster them and use some algorithm for doing the clustering. And when you're all done with those clusters, the centers of those clusters are referred to as visual code words. So here you can see all of these images that were taken from something like tires, then they were all clustered, and so the code word is this little tire piece. Here is a centered tire, right? This is a piece of a tire, this is a full tire, and there are other kinds of code words. So these become the little features that we're going to look for in different images. And this, of course, would assume, in this particular case, we're looking for cars. We've got a bunch of training images on cars. By the way, I should say all of this is done automatically. Okay, so you're going to see some things that look a little strange in terms of code words. Well, it just happened to fall out of the data. This is not a human doing it. This is telling the system to go ahead and do this. The second thing you do is you take these code words, these are our features. Remember, like we had the tire, and we found everywhere that the tire landed in the image. So what we have here is all of these marks are these little interest points. And what we do is, for every interest point, we find the feature that seems to look best at that point. So that becomes the label of that point. All right, so remember, just the way we had a label before that said the gradient was horizontal pointing inward, here we have the label is that it's the bottom right-hand corner of a tire. Okay, so this is mapping each of the interest points to some particular patch. Finally, what we do is we take each of these little features and we treat them just like we treated those little gradient images. All right, we take the patch, we find the displacement vector to the center, and we write down that displacement vector in a table that's indexed by patch label. So if I find a tire and it's to the left, which means the displacement vector is to the right, I put down that displacement vector. If I find a tire to the right, which means its displacement vector is to the left, I add that same displacement vector to the table with the entry of the tire. And that stores all those displacements.